All right. Well, let's get started. Well, Susie, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Susie Nixon from Herndon, Virginia.
Okay. And what did you do for work?
I'm a retired occupational therapist.
All right. Great.
Retired 2 years ago.
And how did we first meet?
My daughter connected us.
Okay.
She was worried about me. She felt like I was getting weaker and having more trouble getting around. And she, knowing that I had just retired and had time, she thought, well, I'm working out with a personal trainer and it's making a difference for me. I think it might help you. And that was our original contact. She said, I know someone who can find a trainer for you in Northern Virginia. And I said, if you know a trainer you trust, then I'd rather talk to him.
Yeah. So talk to me. This can be a little bit of a longer answer, I'm sure, but talk to me about what we first talked about when you first came to me. What was the reason you were coming? Outside of just what your daughter was thinking, like what you were feeling and experiencing and kind of the why.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. A lot of it was from balance issues. I found myself, if I was on any surface other than sort of flat indoor outdoor surfaces, that I was having to hold on to things. I felt better if someone was walking near me. I have hiking sticks that I use in the summertime when I go to a camp that has a lot of hills, but I was using them at home, like if I walked outside my house across the lawn that's bumpy and stuff like that. Um, and I didn't want to slow down, but I felt like I was slowing down. Like it was just harder to do stuff, harder to transition. When I'd stand up, I'd be achy as I started to walk, that kind of thing. I think that's mostly why.
Okay. Are you willing to share more about your story and to how you got to that point?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I was born with dislocated hips that were completely dislocated, and so had surgical procedures as an infant to try to stabilize things, and then had total hip replacements when I was in my 40s. And the problem was that the hips were never in socket, so I had a lot of muscles that didn't develop properly, uh, were not origins and insertions weren't in the logical places and things like that. So I had a lot of limitations in my walking, standing, being able to get into different positions, even as a child.
Yeah.
And over time, it got worse, and I got arthritis and things like that to add to it.
Can you describe any reservations that you had about working with me before we'd started working together?
Yeah, and really working with anyone because I didn't know you, but
Right.
I sort of trusted my daughter and said, "Okay, I'll meet him. Let's see what happens." Um, well, back to my situation being somewhat unique,
Mhm.
I wondered if you would be able to sort of understand that and appreciate the limitations that I had, and if we could work together so that you could address sort of some specific issues that I had related to my disability. Um, I don't like to exercise, and I'd never done any kind of regular workout program, and the thought of it was unappealing. But I didn't like where I was, so I was willing to talk to you. And I'm generally reserved by nature, so meeting new people, trying new things, sometimes is difficult for me, especially related to having to explain things about my disability.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I don't know if we've actually talked about that before. That's
Mm.
maybe not something that we've talked through.
No, no.
Um, so can you explain how I was able to help you with one or multiple of those reservations?
Sure. Um, regarding my I really don't like to exercise attitude, you just sort of met me where I was, and you always showed respect. And there's sort of a gentleness in your approach that made me feel at ease. I felt like you didn't talk up to me, down to me, or anything like that. We just sort of met as equals, and you wanted to hear as much from me as you wanted to share information with me, and I really appreciated that. Um, and going along with that, just really listening, like truly listening and understanding, and creating a program that I could do that took into account my limitations, but then you didn't hold me there. But the initial was just giving me something exercises. Oh, I can do these exercises. All right, let's give it a try. So at the beginning it was just like, okay, I'm going to trust you and I'm going to try and do these exercises.
Hmm. Yeah, and something I think, just to add a little bit to this, something I think myself was going into it knowing there has to be a starting point for everybody.
Mhm.
And we can, even if it's just, okay, let's lift our leg off the ground as high as
Mhm.
we can go. I think
Mhm.
that was one of the first things, which is now a warm up, or
Yeah.
part of.
Yeah, you're right.
I don't even know if we included it in the warm up at this point.
Yeah. It
But
is still a warm up.
yeah,
So
uh,
I do it a little bit differently to try and challenge myself, but yeah, it's
yeah,
still a warm up.
which
Yeah.
feels cool.
Yeah.
Um, what were when you first came? What were 1 to 2 of your goals? What things did you want or expect to happen?
Well, I really wanted to have better balance on different surfaces. I also just wanted better balance in general because I would feel myself maybe stumbling against my foot a little bit, even indoors, even just walking. I wasn't falling because I'm pretty cautious, but I was finding that I had to sort of be more careful about how I walked so that I wouldn't stumble or bump into something and fall. And I just didn't want to go down that road. The statistics aren't good for
Hmm.
people my age and older falling. And then the other thing was that I was having a really hard time going up and down curbs. So I was hoping that, and that's balance and strength. And I was hoping that I would be able to do that without having so much difficulty. I think those were the main things.
Um, I don't know if I don't think I had a question related to this. Is it okay if I ask a little off topic or off what I sent you?
You're good.
Okay. Um, of those goals, initial goals, do you feel like we hit them, exceeded them, or where do you feel like we're at this point,
Oh,
2 years out?
you asked me that.
Did I?
Yeah, you did. Um, oh yeah. Well, I mean, I gotta look and see what I said about that. Um, Going up and down curbs now, I can do them essentially independently. I have to remind myself, oh, I don't have to look for the curb cut. Oh, I don't have to, hold on to someone or something, that kind of thing. For the most part, I mean, I do have some good days and bad days. If I've been walking a lot and I'm stiff, I'm still gonna, be a little more cautious and things. But um, I I just find myself when I go out and do things, I just feel so much more comfortable. I feel stronger. I'm not I'm careful, but I don't worry about falling anymore. I don't worry about trying to hold on to something. And that's been really important to me. This happened sort of we're almost 2 years in now.
Mm-hmm.
About a year into it, um, I needed to go outside and walk across our lawn. And I had my walking sticks ready so I could do that. And I did that with the sticks. And then I went back out again later to do something else. And I just didn't even grab the sticks. I didn't even think about it. I'm halfway across the lawn and it's got a hill and it's kind of rutted and things like that. And I thought, oh, well, I guess I don't need the sticks. So I mean, I think that early on other things happened that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
But early on, the things that I had hoped for, I think really have occurred. Last summer, I sent you this sort of excited text about I tripped, but I didn't fall. And
Yes.
I tripped over the edge of a cloth, and I thought, oh, I'm surely going to go down, and I didn't, and that's happened several times, and because I've texted you and said it happened again, and those things were surprises and very. Um, I felt really good about that. I was surprised that I didn't fall, and I thought, well, this is from the work that we've done.
Hmm.
So things that I didn't know were better, like that type of stumble, correct yourself balance, even though you said we're going to be working on that because you will trip at some point. Everyone
Hmm.
does. And I was like, yeah. Um, but it's true. I mean, it's happened on multiple occasions now. And it just makes me feel more confident and more secure.
Yeah. That's great. Looking at, the last almost 2 years, what do you feel are the top achievements, the things that mean the most to you, that have happened over the course of the last 2 years?
Well, aside from we talked about the balance and going
Mm-hmm.
up and down like curbs and like like single steps and things like that. Um, I I did it. I've done this exercise program. It's emotional for me. That's okay. I've stuck to this program
Mm-hmm.
for almost 2 years, and I don't think about not doing it. I have days when I'd rather not, but I'd always do at least a portion of the program 5 days a week. You know my limits. Give me 8 exercises, don't give me more. Give me the weekends off, the occasional holiday. But I've really stuck to it, and that I'm very, very proud of, actually.
Yeah. And you
Um,
should be.
yeah. It's easier to get up and down from the floor. The first time we've worked face to face periodically, and then I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing your remote program. But the first time you had me get down on one knee, I sort of looked at you and said, I can't. Um, but it's part of my regimen. I think every day, all 5 days now, I'm getting up and down from the floor at least once. And initially, that was incredibly difficult. Yes, I'm using the step or I'm using a table or something to push up on, but it's much easier to get up and down from the floor. And I really appreciate that because there are still times when I need to get down on the floor to look for something or clean something or whatever. Um, Walking on uneven surfaces has gotten better. There's still work there to do, but it's gotten a lot better. Um, and that 100 pounds you had me lift the last time I saw you twice, where you know that I didn't believe you. Um, it's like this little moment in time. It's a little snapshot because it doesn't reflect all of the gains that I've made. But to see myself be able to do that was very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And it speaks to a lot of the different exercises sort of coming together. And that's been really important to me. So yeah, I think those are the things that stand out for me.
Yeah. That's great. Um, how of what you haven't shared yet, how is life different for you now compared to when we first started?
Mm. Well, one of the things I remember you saying this the first time I met you, something about reduction of pain would not necessarily be a goal.
Mhm.
I don't remember if you remember that or not, but I thought, okay, so I'm not, and I wasn't asking for that. I have over the past few years, I've developed arthritis in my feet. It's particularly painful to walk every time I, sit or, in the morning coming out of bed and things like that. And it's a lot of pain and it could last for up to a half hour of sort of hobbling around until, gradually as arthritis does, as you warm things up and move, it tends to dissipate. That has been a huge change. I still have pain when I get up in the morning, but it lasts a minute or two. And I assume it's because of all the strengthening that we've done with my feet and my ankles and things like that, and we're continuing to try new things to work on that. And that's really been huge. And the other place I would have pain was in my lower back, just with muscle spasms, nothing wrong, no arthritis in my spine, thankfully. And that's the other thing that has just gotten better and better. And I'm sure it's as we've strengthened the musculature around these structures and areas that I've been able to tolerate a lot more. And that I think that's been one of the biggest differences that I didn't expect that has improved my quality of life dramatically.
Hmm. Yeah, I remember that conversation because that we first had.
Mm,
Because going into it with the way your daughter was describing some of the limitations you had, I wasn't even sure that I could help.
mm,
And I think I shared a little bit of my trepidation at the very beginning, thinking I think these things are going to help,
mhm,
but I cannot be certain. And
right.
that was kind of how I went into that conversation, and really how we've approached this you know this relationship with
Mhm,
a great deal of openness and flexibility, because there are
yes.
things that I like to try that sometimes put you too far out of your comfort zone, and I have to dial it back in,
Mhm.
and again meet you where you're at and find the place where you're ready to go. um,
But I have to say about that more often than not, you ask me to do things that I, in fact, can do or can do in some form. And I might look at you and say, well, no. But you say, well, yes, let's try.
right.
And so, I mean, I think you actually are pretty spot on a lot of the time. The other thing that happened at that first meeting that impressed me and I think gave you a more accurate sense of me because my daughter worries. Bless her, she worries. I'm getting old.
Yeah.
Was you had me do some things and you were like, oh, you can do that. Oh, okay. So I think I was able to do some things, and I don't even remember specifics about it. You were just checking out some different movements to see
Mhm.
because you were trying to get a sense of, okay, so what are some movements that you can and can't do based on the disability, as well as my current function and things. And I think that gave you a better picture. And then when you gave me my program, it was really, really hard when I started. Now I
Right.
think about it, how easy it would be to do now. But everything you gave me to do, I was able to do somehow,
Yeah.
some modification or whatever, but I was actually able to do everything that you gave me. And we figured that out pretty early on.
It didn't
I
take
didn't see
long.
changes. I didn't see changes for several weeks,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
just, okay, this is the exercise, I'm going to do it. And then little by little, the exercises got just a little bit easier. But I think it was probably, I feel like it was probably 2 to 3 months, maybe two and a
Hmm.
half, 3 months. And then I started to see, oh, this really has gotten easier. I can take it up a notch now.
Hmm.
And you'd say, okay, well, let's try doing it from this position or doing it with this
Yep.
number of reps or whatever it was.
I
So,
think, if I'm remembering correctly with you, the first 10 weeks were pretty static.
yeah.
And then at that like 10-week mark, then things started to fall into place, and the
Mhm.
the effects of what you were doing was really beginning to show up.
Yeah. I think that's really accurate. And then I think it was a few more weeks when I could sort of really see it. It's like
Hmm.
changes were starting, they were happening. You could maybe see it more than I could. But I really, instead of just like little tiny improvements, all of a sudden I thought, oh, I'm not at that level now. I'm at this level now.
Hmm.
And then and we've just kept going from there.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, this is a fun one. What is something that seems attainable now, that you were sure was impossible before?
Well, um, Hmm. This is a little hard for me because I've always when it comes to my physical nature, not other things about my life, but the physical side of things, I've never been a big dreamer.
Hmm.
So, I'm starting to think that I might be able to get up from the floor independently at some point. And I had mentioned to you, I would really love to be able to do that. It's just a straight up safety kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
ultimately. And I'm beginning to think that that might be possible. Um, there's, I think I'll be able to, everything like the balance and strength and walking on uneven surfaces, I think that's going to continue to improve. I don't think I've plateaued or anything. The new one that you don't actually know about is that I told you I'm looking at e-trikes now.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned bikes, but I'm not going there. But I am very interested in an e-trike, and I found the one I think that I want to buy. And the question is, the man he said, "Oh, you can put this in your car because you can fold the handlebars and the seat and everything. You lift up the front wheel, get it up onto the back of your car, and then you lift up the two back wheels. The back end's going to be heavier, and you lift it and you put it into your car." Um, I think I might be able to get strong enough to do that. I don't know if I'm strong enough now or not. I'm going to be trying it again in a few weeks when I go back to see him again. But I had thought, oh, how am I going to get the bike in the car if I want to go places and do other things without someone helping me? And now I think I can probably do that. I mean, if I can
Yeah.
lift 100 pounds, I do have to lift it and push it in, and it doesn't weigh 100 pounds. And it's only the back end.
Right. It's different.
It's different. It's a different kind of a lifting a weight. I might be able to do that.
I think you're pretty spot on there.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, if I get it, I'll bring it to your house and you can show me how to do it. If I haven't already figured it out.
There we go.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think there are probably other things that I could do that I'm not able to dream about. So you might need to do some of the dreaming for me and make some other suggestions of things that would be good for me to aspire to. Does that make sense?
That keeps it fun for me.
Good. Okay. Well,
That's exciting.
I'm on if you're on.
No, that was great. That's phenomenal.
Hmm.
Is there anything you'd like to add to what we've talked about today? Feel like you haven't shared yet?
Well, one of the questions that you had asked me, like, what would I say to somebody else? And I thought about that question for a long time.
Hmm.
It's hard for me because I think everyone is unique and has unique situations. But
Yeah.
from my point of view, I didn't know what I was capable of. But I found out by trusting the process and trusting you and making the commitment to do the work. And even on days when I couldn't do a little bit of the work or something, you've never fussed about it. You just always said, look what you did do, and that I really appreciated that. And the other part was it was really hard at first. And that was the hardest part where I wasn't seeing any changes yet. And the
Mm.
exercises felt so hard. Like everything I did seemed to take so much physical and emotional energy. But you just stayed right with me. And that type, you've always said, well, I've done the work, but I would not have known what work to do if it hadn't been for you. And I don't think I would have persevered as well. I mean, it was
Mm.
a commitment. I didn't want to let you or myself down. So I'm going to do the exercises and record them. But also just, you were just like, you can't, just, that's great. Now keep going. Now that's great. Now let's try this new thing. And trusting that process and being willing to put myself out there has changed my life very dramatically, as you
Mm.
know, because we've talked about that.
Yeah.
So, and I feel like I'm an inspiration to my daughter who has ebbed and flowed a little bit. We won't identify her, but has ebbed and flowed a little bit. And she's back to regular workouts again. And she has also encouraged me and told me that she was proud of me. And so if that inspires someone else, that's why I'm talking to you right now.
Mm. And I would say even incredibly valuable if she's the only one that it does.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
You
Yeah.
know,
Well, it means a lot to me.
absolutely.
It means a lot to me. So
Yeah. And knowing her personally, it means a lot to me as well.
yeah, yeah.
Um, I've one question I didn't throw on there.
Go for it.
Um, you have a milestone coming up. You want to share what it is?
Um, I'll be too emotional, but you can share. It
Okay.
really is very, very powerful for me.
Yeah. And I'm tearing up as we talk about it. Uh,
So
so
you
for
can subscript it when you send this out.
for
I'm really,
those
really proud
listening,
of that.
you're
So
coming up on 500 workouts.
yep.
I think in total that ended up being like 6 days that were over the course of almost 2 years moved around. I think that ended up being
Oh, where
what
I was
happened.
sick and couldn't
Either
exercise
sick
and trade.
or holiday or things were moved. I don't think I've ever had someone with that kind of consistency. I've been training people for 5 years now.
Hmm.
Over 100 clients at this point.
Hmm.
No one has ever shown that kind of
Hmm.
dedication and persistence through the difficulties that you have faced.
Hmm.
So I'm particularly proud of that, as I know you are.
I mean, I don't know where that came from. And
mm,
if you had asked me at the beginning or said, like, how many will you have in a row kind of thing, I would never have assumed that that would be the case. But there's something about this that is a mission for me. And that gets me doing it every day.
mm,
Sometimes, rarely now, but sometimes I would start at 8 o'clock at night
mm,
because I'm not going to bed before I do the exercises.
yeah,
Now I'm better at doing them earlier in the day. And if I have to break them up, I break them up. But no, it's a mission for me now, and I feel that I'm given the strength as well as I draw on my own strength to do that, and
yeah,
I'm very, very thankful for that.
that's awesome. You have anything you want to add? I feel like that's a good place to stop.
I think that's good.